Larry,
What's going on?
how are you, man? Thank you for joining
I'm good.
us.
Thank you for having me.
Nah, of course, man. Wanted to get you on. Obviously, I know you do a lot of work in New York City, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've taken over the Broadway boxing series, right?
Yes. Well, we're in the process of taking it over. We've aired a few of our shows have aired as Broadway boxing, but Lou and I are in the process of finalizing some details on what the future of Broadway boxing is going to be.
I feel like the last time we spoke, you and I were discussing, just where these club shows are and how hard it was to put them on. You didn't have a DAZN deal at the time. Do you remember that conversation?
I do. Well, we never really had a DAZN deal. We were just sort of, DAZN was taking certain shows, from random small promoters. I'm not really sure what our future is on that platform. As is nobody. I'm not really sure, and anybody really knows what the short term future of televised boxing is going to be in this country.
Oh wow. I was under the impression that you had a DAZN deal.
No, look, we're fight by fight. I'm the little guy. So our last show, the Andy Dominguez fight was on the zone. Our last 4 or 5 shows were on the zone. Our next show is up in the air where we're going to stream it.
well, that
We're
sucks.
back in.
I would figure
We're
with
back.
5 shows on DAZN, they would have by now liked the product. Who's the main event for the one that's up in the air?
Well, we're working on our next New York club show. Right now we've got a bunch of A sides. I'm not really ready to make any official announcements other than we're hoping that Nadeem Saloom is coming back, and we're gonna have George Arias is gonna come back. We were supposed to have him in
The Dominican
February, and this
heavyweight.
like yeah, with that we were doing with the Bella, and we've got about 4 or 5 other names that we're sort of banding around right now, but nothing has been nothing's been finalized.
For sure. Well, I wanted to get you on specifically because of this Muhammad Ali revival act, and I don't know if you've been following it, but I'm under the impression it's going to affect you more than it will affect a top rank who, hypothetically has 29 dates, so they can get a, I guess, deal on insurance. How is this $25,000 per fight gonna affect you?
Let me break this down a little bit.
Yes,
As
that's
I've
why I
been through it,
got you on, man. I'm not as
there's a
educated
lot
as you.
of there's I'm not educated. I've just been through the school of hard knocks. The the insurance is not that big of a deal. When I say the 25, it's not like you're writing a check for 25,000. You're just paying a premium for it. We have higher insurance requirements in New York and in New Jersey, quite frankly, for the shows. As far as the medical and insurance requirements that were listed in the new act for the UBOs, with all due respect to everyone, New York and New Jersey have you know tougher regulations. So I didn't read anything in those regulations that was just like, oh my God, we're out of business. I just read it as good. There's about 35 other states that should be ashamed of themselves that don't have good, positive regulations. And I think that that's really the conversation that we should be having if we're going to be changing the Muhammad Ali Boxing Act. Is I'd like to see the other states bring their regulations up to where New York and New Jersey are. But that's not really what this is about. This is really just about 1 or 2 companies carving out a different niche in boxing.
How do you see the UBO and what they're trying to do? Do you welcome it as friendly competition, or do you see it the way De
Well,
La Hoya does today?
it's nothing's friendly. Let's be honest. I mean, I was just a media know-it-all, and we kind of got thrown into this, and we've done 17 club shows. I don't I'm a guy like me will always be able to find a few guys in the gym and match them against a few guys and put on a show. I think the reason that De La Hoya and certain people in the boxing industry are going to be upset about it is the days of you getting a piece of Mike Tyson walking into your gym and possibly becoming a millionaire off of it isn't going to happen. And it was explained to me early on that if that had happened to me now, It wasn't going to happen. So, so if you're nobody's thinking that, oh, Conor McGregor was going to come in there and you were going to have 2% of it and get rich off of him like it was in boxing. So, I just think that it's going to change, but it's not going to change like overnight. It's going to take 5 or 10 years for it to cycle out, and I don't think it's going to be as drastic as everyone thinks it is. But I mean, yes, the UBO, controlled by the UFC, will be the undisputed, king of boxing in 5 or 10 years. It's not going to happen overnight.
Why do you think it'll be the undisputed king of boxing with so many? I mean, Bob Aaron's been around for years,
Uh,
and Todd DeBuff
Bob
is
Arum,
being
look, it's
groomed.
nothing. They run the greatest fight promotion in the history of mankind. What they put together, what they started 25 years ago, the UFC has done. Now we can argue over certain ways they run their business, but they are the undisputed king of fight sports right now, and there's really just no other way around it.
And you mean UFC?
UFC, well, that UFC, it's TKO. They have WWE. I mean, these guys know how to produce live events.
What numbers do you foresee for this Crawford Canelo since it's being promoted by Dana TKO? It'll be on Netflix. Does it even compare with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, or was that an anomaly?
I mean, that was an anomaly because it was Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, but I think this will be big. This will be big for boxing, and believe me, they're going to stack the undercard, and they're going to pull out all the stops from a marketing standpoint. This is going to be good for boxing. This is going to be big for boxing, and it's one of those true 50-50 fights. Everyone's going to argue over who's going to win, and it's going to be good for boxing as far as the getting it out there and bringing it to the next generation, the next level, as far as getting Netflix and more involved with boxing.
So you're originally from Atlantic City.
I am from Atlantic City, yes, sir.
Wow, man, my aunt was from Pleasantville. I used to go down
Okay.
there to the shore all the time. That's crazy. So have you
Yeah,
done any business with Thomas Lamana down there? And
yeah,
he always has the Claridge and the Baileys.
yeah. I've done I've done business with everyone down here. We just had a show last Friday night at Tropicana.
Okay.
That was potentially a fight of the year. We had we had 10 rounds of 50-50 split decision victory. It was for a WBC silver title. It was wild, and it's like, I love everyone to come check it out on YouTube right now. The Andy Dominguez fight.
So are you streaming straight to YouTube even when you have a DAZN deal, or is it either or?
Uh, it's either or.
Okay.
Um,
And what is
you
the
know,
YouTube channel that we can go to find
it's
all the
it
catalog?
is much smaller than the Boxing Voice. I'll tell you that right now. It's Boxing Insider's YouTube channel.
Okay. Hey man, maybe we need to do something, man. Get those things streamed on here to get these guys some of this exposure.
Yeah, I love to like I said, I'd love to talk about any way to get the thing out there. We are the last of the little guy as far as the small promoters. There's like a handful of us, left doing these club boxing shows. And it's been a lot of fun the last 3 years. We've done 17 of them in New York City and Atlantic City.
Why New York if you're based out of Atlantic City? What's is it
Because I've
because
been
you took
living
over
in
the series?
well, like, the one thing had nothing to do with the other. I was living in New York, and I was very good friends with Heather Hardy, and she wanted to have a comeback fight about 2022, and that was sort of how the shotgun marriage between me and Mr. DeBella happened. We did her comeback fight in was it October of 2022, and then we turned over and did 9 back-to-back-to-back shows at Sony Hall, which was, like I said, a lot of fun. They gave us an award for pretty much bringing boxing back to Manhattan after the pandemic. And then New York's a tough. New York is the most regulated state in the country for a lot of things, including boxing. And we hit some a few brick walls, with some of our fights there. And then at the same time, Atlantic City, which is where I grew up, had an opening. Tropicana, which used to host fights all the time, hadn't done fights in like 10 years, and we just literally on a whim brought the series here, and it was, like I said, we've done, 5 shows in 14 months in Atlantic City, and then we're back at Sony Hall on, when is it back, September 19th, and I'm just sort of putting together the matches for the Sony Hall show right now.
25 years, right? It was my math. That's right. Why did it take you so long? And man, you're my new hero. It's like you
Wait, what
transitioned
was 25 years?
from starting Boxing Insider to your first
so we
October
start so we
show.
started So we started Boxing Insider, and I'm not gonna lie, I grew up here, so this was just, I got into the fights, and it was, like, I thought if you would have seen me at the fights, I would have been the idiot cracking jokes, recording stuff on my phone, and whatever. Went to a lot of fights. We had a lot of reporters go to the fights, and at some point you sit in enough of these, and you're like, well, I could do this better, and so at some point after the pandemic, nothing was going on in New York, and I just kind of gave it a shot. And I wish I had done it sooner. If I would have known we were going to become promoters, I probably wouldn't have let some of these knuckleheads write some of the dumb articles they wrote over the years on Boxing Insider. But it is what
Wait,
it is.
wait,
But
because that's made relationships with fighters and getting fighters to fight for you difficult. Why exactly?
no. It made getting relationships in the boxing industry difficult. I mean,
Okay.
just because and I don't have to tell you guys, certain people in the boxing industry don't want to talk to media.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I get what
and
you're
I
saying.
understand. I've now been on both sides of it, so I understand it. But no, what got me into it was I joined Mendez Boxing, and one of our couple of the trainers like Jose Guzman and them used to just put me into these little sparring matches, and I would just get the crap beat out of me, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and that's how I became friends with a lot of the New York guys, and that's sort of what where I had a good Rolodex of people from the New York area that were, willing to give us a shot on the first couple shows. Now, like I said, the New York Boxing Hall of Fame gave us the Promoter of the Year award last year. In 2023, New York State only hosted 16 boxing events, and Boxing Insider did 6 of them at Sony Hall. This year, it's been a little bit more difficult. We had an event we had to cancel at the very last minute because when we had Andy Dominguez's title fight was in New York originally, and it's for a 108-pound title, and his opponent weighed in at like 117 pounds a day before the weigh-in, and our whole event collapsed. So it's difficult being a club promoter, especially and not having the resources of the big guys.
So, take me through that first step. I guess it dawned on you, why shouldn't I do this? How'd you get it done? Who'd you go to first? Did anyone mentor you? What doors were
Yes.
closed?
The doors are closed. They do not want people like me or you getting involved in boxing. I mean, it is a closed old man's club, whatever you want to call it. I had just I had Boxing Insider since the late '90s. So how many times have you gone to a fight? And you're walking around. I'm like, I could do this better. This guy's an idiot. Da 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 da. So we went in, and I went into the people who run amateur boxing. Sony Lamonicus runs amateur boxing in New York out of Gleason's gym, and I just sort of walked into her office randomly one day and said, "I want to be a promoter." And she looked at me like I was high and like, get out of my office. Like, what do you mean you want to be a promoter? Like, nobody wants to be a promoter. I said, no, I want to be a promoter. She goes, okay, go find us a venue in New York City. That's da da da. And I came back 2 weeks later with Sony Hall. We did an amateur event there that was good. Heather came to the amateur event, and she was scouting it out because she was sort of seeing if I was going to be able to promote her fight because Lou wasn't promoting fights after the pandemic. So that was sort of when she put me in touch with Ludabella. Ludabella sort of said, "Go get licensed and call me back." Getting licensed in New York is not easy, and so we went through the process, and we did the show on October 22nd of 2022, and then we just did another one and another one and another one, and just
But
sort of
but
tried to be
but let
the
me ask you
promotion
here,
of the.
Larry. Nothing. I mean, nothing hit you. Like, why should I talk to Lou? Why is Lou getting out of the New York boxing scene? A guy that's been there.
Because Lou has a brain. That's why. Because Lou is sane is why he's got out of the box. It's like I have to have something wrong with me to want to continue to do this. But no, I mean, look, the fact is, it's he was retiring. Lou has opened up a baseball. Lou owns a baseball team that he doesn't talk about online, but he owns the Flying Squirrels in Virginia. And that's what takes a majority of his time. And he still has a piece of a few heavyweights and a few fighters like George Arias, like Ronnie Hines in our Atlantic City show, and we still do business with him. And he's given me a lot of advice, and we're taking over the Broadway boxing show on SNY. We're just in the process of figuring out what exactly that means as far as doing a clip show from the desk and distributing it, and because we both have our archives and basically trying to do a New York boxing show.
Mm. So he never once told you don't do this. That
Well, he
wasn't his advice to you.
No, his advice was that we should merge with the Bella Entertainment and do it with him. And my original idea was when we first got into it, if I had just kind of done this with him, none of you guys would believe that I was actually the one doing it. So it was important for me to be the little guy and to put these things together on my own, and that has a distinct meaning from a licensing and a legal standpoint, because I don't think anyone realizes just how regulated by the government boxing is.
Mm.
Like, it's really regulated by the government, and in different states, it's completely different what goes on in New York versus what goes on in New Jersey versus, and those are two real states versus what goes on in like South Carolina or Tennessee or some of these other states where they don't even do proper testing.
Mm.
Mm. Wow.
So isn't New York, I guess, more expensive though?
Yes,
Or it still works
yes.
out for you?
Again, look, everything in New York City is more expensive. A Diet Coke is $9 in New York City. It's 75 cents other places. I mean, it is more expensive when they throw the extra expenses at you in New York, and it always comes back. If you historically read about people talking about why it's so expensive in New York, they always talk about the insurance.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is there was an incident about 10 or 15 years ago where someone got injured, and in New York, there's a $1 million policy on brain damage. Other
That was
states,
the guy on
it's,
HBO that fought Mike
yeah,
Perez. I can't remember his last name. I mean,
Magomadov.
there you go.
And because of that, New York is under a political mandate to not have mismatches and to have this very high insurance. Now you go to other states and the insurance. Now again, when fans are reading, there's a $1 million policy. I'm not writing a check for $1 million. It's we're paying a premium, hoping, knock on wood, nothing happens. Now, so I mean, so New York has the strictest, insurance requirements, and it has, very strict medical requirements in regards to MRIs, EKGs, eye tests, and blood tests. Those four tests I just said to you are very important. When people start talking about, oh my God, this is going to hurt boxing in other states, do you have any idea what a sin, like that there's like a special place in hell for people that want to put on boxing in events and nobody's checking to see if these guys had an MRI or a CAT scan? I mean, the way it works now is it's every 3 years you get an MRI, unless there's like a knockout or a traumatic event, then you get another scan. In some of these states, it's just, oh, here's an $89 blood test. You guys are good to go. And that's not right. And that's more of a scandal than I heard you guys talking earlier about PEDs and some of the other stuff. Like, guys fighting and not having, everything right up here is more scary for me than anything.
Do you see a world where we have a BBFC like the UK? Because they got the BBFC, which governs every, city and show out there. And they also have UCAD, which governs everything as well from a drug testing standpoint. Why are we so
The
far
answer,
behind?
it's because it's 50 different states, it's 50 different fiefdoms. What goes on in New York State means nothing in Oregon. It was. I was asking a boxing guy the other night, about the Ali Act and how it affected me, and he said, "Look, the problem is the ABC, the Association of Boxing Commissions. You've got 50 states that all have an equal vote, but as we all know, 5 or 10 states do all the boxing, and these other guys who have power, they don't put on any real fights." So, I mean, I'm more interested in what California or Nevada has to say than like 40 other states in the country. And I use those two states because I don't do fights there because I don't want to sound like I'm just talking about the two states that we're very familiar with the regulations of.
Hmm.
Now, boxing needs to be regulated by the government. Like it absolutely does. There's a lot of bad actors. I've seen things. You hear rumors of things that go on. We need to have more of a centralized test. The Muhammad Ali Act is that they're doing. I mean, this isn't the one. This isn't what we asked for. This is what TKO asked for, and that's fine. But again, I don't think it's going back to your original question. I don't think it's going to affect club boxing as much as it's going to affect if you think you're going to sign the next Mike Tyson and his eventual goal is to go there, yeah, good luck to you. You're not going to get rich. He
Right.
might get rich, but as an outsider, as an outside promoter, you're not going to have a lottery ticket like you used to.
Now, you don't think it affects the club promoter from, the B side standpoint? And I'm not saying TKO is going to sign everybody because I'm pretty sure they're going to be selective, but uh, they're making a mandatory minimum. I'm pretty sure some of these guys on
A
these club
mandatory
shows.
minimum is I saw it was 150 a round.
Yeah.
That is for a 4 round fight. That's $600. I mean, come on. I mean, come on. That's we're paying them more than that. And I'm a nobody. I was just, I was just a guy hiring writers for Boxing Insider up until we started doing this. Like we were not a big boxing website. I mean, we had a name. We were around forever. But again, for $150 a round is not a big deal. Making sure that the fighters have those tests is a good thing, and they should be. I mean, now again, it's semantics how some of these fights get made, but but at the end of the day, look at MMA. UFC may have all the best fighters in theory, but you still have small events in all these towns that are feeding the UFC. In the MMA world, like there's a group that runs at the casino that we run out at Tropicana. It's called Ring of Combat or something. And their whole thing is we put 100 guys into the UFC. Could you imagine a boxing promoter saying, "Hey, I signed 100 of my guys didn't sign with me and went to Top Rank"? Like a boxing promoter would want to shoot themselves. In the MMA world, that's considered, "Hey, come fight for us." So it's a different way of looking at it. We can argue the semantics, but I don't think that the Muhammad Ali Act is going to affect a person like on the small promoter side because I'm always going to be able to find two random guys that aren't signed and try to make a fight. I'm not gonna. I might not be able to lead them to the promised land, but I don't think I'm the guy to lead them to the promised land now.
No, and listen, without having you on the show, I thought that it wouldn't be hard for the small promoter just because of that, but more because I feel like Dana's going to be selective of who he signs. He's not just going to get any random guy and let alone random B side, So
They always look. The UFC was always they always wanted fights. They loved when the B side won. They never wanted other than a few guys. They never really wanted stars. And boxing is just a star system. If your favorite fighter is not fighting, you're not watching. UFC was always like you're coming to watch the fights.
so I'm on the website. You don't have a tab where I can see boxing insider fighters, or you don't have your own fighters at the moment.
I was advised very early on not to sign anybody, and
Okay.
so we've done 17 fights, 17 events. My rationalization is it's very expensive to develop a fighter the right way, and I did not want to be one of these scummy small promoters that was just trying to trap fighters and sign them to option agreements just because they fought on my card.
Uh huh.
And so, again, I can sleep well at night knowing that we haven't exploited any of the fighters. But yeah, but on the other hand, some of the fighters like, oh, please sign me, sign me. I'm like, I haven't signed anybody, and
So
so
does that
that's
mean you're
again, I'm
paying a percentage to the fighters that are signed to use their services, or on this level you don't have to?
every deal is different, whether it's a promoter trying to put a fighter on our card, whether it's a local ticket seller that thinks he can sell enough tickets to cover the expenses, or it's a fight that I just want to put on. I mean, so they're all different ways, but the problem is, when we do Sony Hall in New York City, I'm only allowed 5 or 6 fights, and just because it's such a
Damn.
tiny venue. This venue holds 500 people. It's right across from where they do Hamilton. It's
No, no,
it's it's a
I've
gr-
been to one of the Bella shows. I had no clue because it has like high ceilings. I didn't know it was that small. I've been to
for a state.
Lou DiBella shows at Sony Hall and BB King's.
He yeah. For boxing, it holds about 580. And
Mm.
so it's New York, it's a tough thing, but it's got a great environment for the fights. And it's like I always said, it was like doing drugs for boxing because you're right on top of the ring. There isn't a bad seat in the house. You can feel the sweat and the punches and the energy. It's different than going to one of these big sanitized events. It's a completely different energy than what we do in Atlantic City, which again also is another great room for boxing at the Tropicana.
Mm.
The,
Larry, I wanted to ask you something that you were touching on about the sport and how we need to protect these fighters, like such sports like in the NFL where they're making these concussion protocols and things, and really looking out for the safety and the well-being of these fighters. And you just touched on that all these states are not on the same rule
Not even
structures and everything.
close. Look,
Yeah.
I have to be careful. I have to be careful what I say. So,
Hmm.
and I'm bad at parsing my words. But I
Hmm.
could just tell you that in New Jersey, they looked very harshly at certain documents because they want everything to be by the book. There and there have been bad actors in boxing. Let me just leave that
Yes.
out. There have been enough bad actors in boxing over the years that you need the government involved. You
yes.
need the government involved because, and the part of the reason
What does
that
that
they almost
mean for
have,
you though? Does that mean
I'm clean
actual
as a whistle.
policing?
I,
No, 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 no,
I
no,
am
no,
clean as a
no, no, no,
whistle.
no.
So
When you say
I
you
don't
need the
mind
government
dealing with the attorney
involved,
general's office.
say again.
Right.
I'm sorry. I don't mind dealing. In New Jersey, it's the Attorney General's office that regulates boxing. We're clean as a whistle. It is what it is. But
Hmm.
I am okay with, because again, what are we looking at? We're looking at, if you want to box in one of these two states that I promote in, you better have had an MRI or a CAT scan. That means
Right.
your brain was looked at by your own doctor past you, and then the state athletic commission doctors past you. And these are real doctors. These are not quacks.
And that's for the safety
Then
of the
you've
fighter.
got to have an eye exam. You have to have a blood exam. You have to have your heart work. You
Right.
have to know that you're healthy. And some of these states, they don't test for this stuff. Now again, not the big states, but again, I mean, if you go through how many states make you do a CAT scan or an MRI, it's not every single one of them. It's fewer than half. What that
Mm.
exact number is, I don't know.
Hmm. And you think that more of these kind of exams should be implemented in boxing for the protection of the fighters rather than people just trying to make a quick buck and damaging some of these fighters because there's life after boxing
Oh,
and they
there
should
has to
have.
be life after boxing, but it's
Right.
again, before you can step in the ring, you have to
Hmm.
demonstrate that you've passed these tests. Then
Hmm.
after the fight, if you got your bell rung, you know what? You've got to go to the hospital. You've got to get it
Right.
looked at. You've got to do pre-fight and post-fight. And it's
Hmm.
not all just because we're all trying to protect our own butts. It's I mean, people have died, people have gotten injured, even following all the regulations. I'm dealing right now with fighters who are dealing with tremendous injuries from boxing, and
Hmm.
the regulations have to do as much as possible to keep everybody safe. And if that means it's going to put a few promoters out of business because, look, if
Right.
the difference between me doing shows in New York and not doing shows in New York was I had to pay for a couple MRIs, well, you know what? What was it? What's the alternative? Oh, I was going to have fights and these guys were going to be brain dead? Come on now.
Right. Do
And
you
look,
think it's because of
we've lost fights because of we lost a fight in December. Our main event we lost because the eye doctor didn't like something. They checked him out afterwards, and it turned out the guy was one punch away from going blind. I mean,
wow.
would you rather have that fight and know that that happened? Because you understand if that had happened 2 weeks later, only me and a few people would have known. It's not like the fans would ever know. But would you want it on your conscience that a guy
Right.
fought blind? So the answer is yeah, we need to have more regulations.
Right. Right. And I was saying, I was alluding to the fact that, do you think it's because of some of these guys just don't want to pay a couple extra bucks to have these
Oh, it's all
exams?
about the
And you
money.
said
It's
it.
and by the way, it's
Yeah,
not even
you
just the
answered it.
money. It's
Yep.
it's how many guys do you know that are just knockaround guys from the old days that can't just if there's a knockaround guy from the old days, you know what? And he's had a lot of fights. He may not pass the brain test.
Mm,
He may
Chop
not
Top
pass the
Corley,
extra
right?
test.
Like a Chop Top Corley.
I'm not going to name any names, but I'm just going to say
yeah.
that I mean, look, if I can tell you that if a fighter is fighting in New York or New Jersey, they've had proper testing.
Mm.
Mm,
And that's important, and that is more important than whether because I mean I love to come on here and talk about what's really wrong with boxing, and as far as there's a whole underbelly of side deals and all this other crazy stuff that kind of goes on the club level thing that I see. But if we're just talking about the Ali Act, and if Bob Arum decided he wants to be a UBO tomorrow and come up with his own belt, I mean, what's that difference than them running it like Bellator? I mean,
right.
Oh shit.
A guy like Dana White can't be dealing with some of these horrible people that we're forced to deal with in boxing. I mean, it is what it is. You would always joke. I always think that was one of the reasons he never got involved with boxing sooner, was just because you're dealing with just some interesting characters, we'll say nicely, and which again is why the government has to regulate boxing. And we can all disagree on what that role is going to be, but trust me, people get hurt. And people try to stack the odds in one favor or the other, and you need an arbiter that has regulatory teeth to police
Mm,
it.
Can I know? Can you give us more detail? What do you mean by interesting characters? Because that's so
Oh,
vague.
what do you want me to say? That there are just people that are just the absolute scum of the earth that can be
No, no,
involved in
no, no,
boxing?
no,
no, no,
Because
no.
they
but
are. I've
I
met some
just
of the
want to know,
greatest.
like, I just want to know, like, what does a guy do, act like, or look like that Dana wouldn't deal with? I can't. Like,
Oh,
what
come
is
on!
that?
You've got guys that control fighters or want to control fighters that are just bad people. I mean, just I mean, it is what it is. I mean, in MMA they have it's a very homogenized group of managers that all sort of kind of work together. I mean, some of these people are just it's boxing.
But Larry,
I
what
mean,
about the flip side? A guy like Nikisha who came up under Dana, and man, he's fucking took an MVP to the next level.
to the next level. They're gonna, we're, I'm one of the female fighters that we're trying to put on the next card. I can't announce it because we don't have a fighter. I was gonna tell her her whole marketing plan is gonna be like, "Hi, I'm the next fighter that Nikisa and MVP should sign." I mean, they're all doing great things. This is never going to be a sport where one entity is going to have a monopoly,
mm.
Mm.
but it's going to be one entity who's going to control a large portion of it. But it's always going to be somebody.
Larry, do you think that we'll ever get to a point where we'll get to a common place where all these testings in all states will have to be mandatory? Do you think that we'll ever see a day in boxing where that the safety of the fighter putting up these events like you talk about? You think we'll ever get there?
I hope, but again, the each state is a fiefdom of its own. They all have their own rules and regulations that are predicated on things that have happened in that state, in years past. So I could be hopeful. I mean, I could be hopeful.
Mm.
I can also be hopeful that I just know how things are run in New York and New Jersey, and I'm very confident. And the regulations that are being bandied around, right now in that act are nothing that we haven't been complying with in New York and New Jersey.
Okay.
So Larry, you don't sign fighters. So how does a fighter find you, and
I have a
what are
hand,
you looking
I have a
for?
handshake. All right, that's it. Which again makes me crazy in boxing because again, look, I get it. I'm a stepping stone. You're gonna leave from my promotion and you're gonna go sign with someone else. And I always tell them, I hope you make $1 million. I learned that to collect that poor, those points of $1 million involves lawsuits, and I don't want that in my life. So to fight on one of our cards, it's really just a matter of we're a New York or New Jersey centric card, and we're looking to make fights that make sense for us on that particular card. And it just sort of happens. We're always cycling through fighters for various different reasons.
So basically, you deal with tri-state area fighters. They have to sell tickets.
No, I mean, look, you don't have to sell tickets. I mean, but it has to make sense.
Right.
Look, the fact of the matter is, and I've learned this the hard way. If you got a guy and his whole thing is I sell tickets, I'm going to sell 75 tickets. He's going to fight a guy that's as horrible as me or you. And no offense to you guys, but like he's not. They're not looking to fight fighters. They're looking to fight guys like us. And that's been the real problem, is trying to make fights like the match that we had this weekend was a rare situation where we had a 50-50 fight. And I mean, and anyone who could tell me, they all think that we have showed favoritism towards Andy over the last few years because he was my friend from before all this. Well, he was in a fight that 50% of the people don't think he won, and he won. It was for a WBC silver title. That was very fulfilling for me to bring someone up that I knew as a kid to get him to his first regional belt.
Mm.
So do you have a process for the B sides that you look for, or are your B sides also typically
I
tri-state
have to
area
plug my
guys?
phone in. No, okay. So I have to plug my phone in. So give
No
me a second.
worries.
No, the B sides is the bane of my existence. So we had a fighter, and I don't want to say who it is, on the last Atlantic City show, and at the 11th hour they pulled out of the fight, and they were just change. It was all about how bad of an opponent can we push through the regulators and the promoters. So you getting in here, we wanted to put on 50-50 fights, 60-40 fights. These guys don't want to do this. These guys want to fight guys that were reminiscent of Saturday morning wrestling jobbers. And
They want an easy
so
fight.
they all want easy fights. They all want to lie to their friends and say that they were in a Gotti Ward fight, they were in this, they were in that. But the truth of the matter is, fighting these B sides are very difficult. And if the fighter sells 5 tickets, he thinks he has leverage over a promoter like me. He says, "Oh, well, I'm just not going to fight, or I need this and I need that," and they don't want to fight anybody. So the flaw and the plan is just okay, this guy's going to sell tickets, but they're looking for fights that again would not even get approved in these states. New York has very difficult and rigorous approval processes for approving B-sides. You go down to Tennessee, you could have a guy on the B-side that's got like 30 losses in a row. In New York, if you have 2 knockouts in a row, you're not fighting. If you have 3 knockouts, if you have 5 losses in a row, you're never fighting. In some of these states, you could fight a guy. I mean, they real quick, they had a guy they wanted me to look at it. I don't want to say who, and I went through his record. He had 3 wins. One of the fighters that he beat had a record of 5 wins, 100 losses, and 3 draws. If you want to see the most breathtaking box track you've ever looked at, a guy with 100 losses, and this guy seeing, oh, but we went rounds with this guy, as if that's something to be proud of.
They approve those guys in the UK. If you look at
And it's not good. It's nobody thinks it's good, and the fans give us a really hard time when that happens. But
so
the
how do you
fighters,
make
I
this
mean,
work, Larry? How do you make this
it's
work? And how
I
is it
I,
that
I
you
need a new
found joy
strength.
in it though? But how did you
Oh,
find
I
joy in
enjoy.
this?
just joy, joy. I mean, joy was when the last fight was over. This Atlantic City event. I mean, we were put through the ringer with a bunch of the fights. I mean, we lost one fight because remember that thing that they did a few weeks ago with Turkey and Ring at that
Yes.
sparring event.
Yes.
Well, one of the guys that was scheduled to fight on the card
He got
got
knocked
kind of
out.
hurt and
Oh,
sucker
that's the
punched
guy
and
Scooby knocked
yeah,
out. Oh,
no,
oh,
no, no, not
Quentin
Scooby.
Randall.
I don't want to say any
I mean,
names, but
I know who it
it
is. I
wasn't
know who it
Scooby.
is. I know the one that
But
behind the headshot.
he was scheduled to fight on our Atlantic City show. Now I don't know if you guys know Larry Hazard.
Yep.
Um, I had to explain to Commissioner Hazard why one of our approved fights wasn't happening, and he couldn't quite wrap his head around that we had this fight and that they took an unregulated fight. And but it's like, yeah, well, I can't tell someone not to go fight for on this, and we had to lose a fight because again it was in that weird gray area because he wasn't medically not cleared to fight, but all you had to do is take one look at the video, and they weren't going to let him fight.
Damn.
So
Mm.
I mean, so there's always a lot of things that go on to this. Like we tried to put on one of my really good friends at the last minute, and we tried to put on Dominique Crowder. I know you guys know him, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, Crowder.
Dominique was supposed to fight. When his fight got canceled on Matchroom, I got a call from Adam Glenn, his manager, and for 5 days we worked around the clock to get Dominique on this card. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. He's going to be fighting hopefully in the next week or so somewhere. But it's things like that that bring me joy. Things like we brought some of these fighters pro. I mean, if I could look back on some of the things that we did, I mean you know what I thought was what I liked doing the most was the community outreach in Atlantic City. We did the Atlantic City Police Athletic League show, and it was a situation where we used the boxing event to um, give away tickets to the local kids the younger kids in the amateur event. But we put on an event, and it got the amateur event $65,000 in state funding. For the local pal, and we're going to be doing that again in November here as well. So
Mm.
it's doing the other events and using boxing for community relations is my favorite part of it. I don't believe I'm going to be the guy that's going to discover the next Floyd Mayweather because as Tom Hauser explained to me very early on, I may find Floyd Mayweather. He may fight on my card. I may even sign a contract with him. But rest assured, Al Heyman is going to steal him right from me, and there's
Mm.
nothing I can do about it.
Mm.
Mm.
That's boxing. And so now it's going to be Dana White. And so you know what? I still think there's going to
Well,
be a place for the little guy.
technically speaking, you're a promoter. If you signed them, the verbiage in the contract, you can keep them. According to the late Cameron Duncan, he said that's why he switched from manager to promoter because he found all this great talent, managed them. Then they were able to leave and leave him as a promoter. They can't leave, especially if he does certain things in that contract, like get you a title shot, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, that's why that is the real reason these regional titles are so important to some of these fighters. Now, again, we just delivered Andy Dominguez, and I told his opponent's manager the same thing. I go, understand, I don't have options on either one of you. Like, I really hope Eddie Hearn signs both of you and you all become, millionaires. Now, I'm a unicorn in that regard,
Yeah.
but again, for the amount of money it would you would make at this level, you know what? I don't want to be that guy in their lives. I mean, you ever see? It was Oscar was standing next to Ryan Garcia, and they were like hating each other. Oscars, I'm not letting go of this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could never be in that situation.
Mm.
So
Mm.
how do you make it work though? You haven't told us
I'm
how do you
I'm
make
I'm
it work?
He said
How
he
do
only
I
signed
make it work? I'm
two
I'm
fights,
losing my
one.
I'm losing my mind every day doing this. Is how I'm making it work. We struggle on ticket sales and on merchandise alone. It's very much like an independent wrestling company, like an ECW model. We're not looking to sign the fighters. We're looking to put on the shows. And a successful show will lead to, like I said, I believe that our product is as good as anyone else's. We're just missing the money. I don't have, I don't have the money behind me that many promoters have. So we're doing this just completely on grit and, a little bit of balls, kind of. But I'm not the guy to own the fighters. I'm the guy to just
Mm.
try to put on the fights. And, it's like I
What
said,
would
no
an
two deals are the
influx of
same.
cash or money, as you say, how would that help Boxing Insider as a promoter?
I mean, the level of fights we could put on would it was like this. They were talking about city grants and stuff, and explained to someone that, like, if you gave me $20,000, I could write two checks for $10,000 and put on one level of fight. If you gave me $50,000, I could put on another level of fight. You gave me $1 million, I could put on another level of fight. So it's really just a matter of having money to make those types of fights.
But what about
Mm.
the ROI though? Because it's like,
Well,
yeah,
again,
you got your 20,000, you put on that level of fight. What's the ROI? How do you? Because you're asking for more money, but you're also saying you're struggling with ticket sales. So how is more money scale?
well, no, it's if a promoter is putting on a fight, if another promoter is putting on the fight, then that promoter, what they're getting out of it is their fighter is worth more when the fight is over. So it's, for me, we're getting a fight paid for, and for the promoter, their guy becomes a commodity. I mean, perfect example of a blended deal that we did was we put the regional belt on and we featured Avius Griffin 3 times. Avius just
Mm.
went on to MVP. I mean, where we have numerous of issues of people where the fight where we can make a deal and the fighter uses our platform and they go off and they become a big star, or a big star might not be the right word, but it's a
You
launching
get a
pad to
big
go somewhere
deal
else. So it's a we're an important cog in the wheel of boxing.
for sure.
Mm.
You
Mm.
said that you think you're the biggest small promoter.
No, I just said I'm the smallest promoter. I am the smallest promoter in the history of New York and New Jersey. Really.
I'm pretty sure you said something different earlier. That's why I was gonna. That's why I was gonna say, what's your thoughts on Pro Box? Do you think they're bigger than a club promoter?
Yes.
Okay.
ProBox has money behind it. ProBox has boxing scene behind it. ProBox has Gary Jonas behind it. Has resources behind it. They are much bigger than a club promoter. A club promoter is like, this is like Rocky One with like Spider Rico. We're just making club fights, and you can't make club fights in 2025 because there is no glory of being a journeyman fighter like there used to be. People are doing MMA, they're doing bare knuckle, they're just they're doing other disciplines, so there's just not as many fighters as there used to be.
And I heard you bring up Adam Glenn. Didn't he used to do his own shows?
No, Adam was always a manager. He was on that side of it. He has a lot of the best New York fighters under contract, including our friend Nadeem Saloom, who we're hoping to bring back in September 19th.
And I mean, he does have that BXNG network
EXNG. He's got but like I said,
and a
he's
bar
got
out there
Elon
in New
De
York, right? Does he
Jesus.
have like a
He's got at
bar?
Jimmy's Corner.
Yeah, Jimmy's
Yeah,
Corner.
you got to go
Yeah.
to Jimmy's Corner in Times Square. It's an old school boxing venue.
Nah,
It's
I
very.
went when I was in New York. I'm in Vegas now, but when I lived in the tri-state for many years, I definitely went there. Yeah, and I just thought Adam. I knew he was a manager. I just also thought he did shows, club shows specifically. But I guess I'm
No,
wrong.
he's involved with the club shows, but he has about four or five. He has about four or five fighters right now that he manages. I might be off by a little bit, but like I said, we were trying to put on Dominique Crowder, who, again, he was one of these guys when I was just still doing the media stuff, and Dominique was just an amateur. Like, I was buying him boxing gloves and T-shirts, and I was sponsoring him, before we ever thought that there'd be a chance to ever do an event. And I actually he headlined our Atlantic City show in November against Duke Mika, and like he had like a minute knockout. It was crazy.
So what's the deal with Nadeem, man? I've met him a bunch of years ago in person. I think it was in Atlanta that I watched one of his fights live. I think
I love Nadeem. Nadeem is one of my
seems to have a
friends.
good.
He's got a good little following. He's
Yeah.
the first ever boxer from Lebanon, as he likes to remind us every single time we see him. Um,
You not
he
lying?
I love him, so I'm allowed to goof on him. He's been stuck in Lebanon for the whole duration of the war,
Wow.
and so they've been trying to get him out. So it looks like his situation, if his visa clears, he's fighting at Sony Hall, and I'm very excited to feature him again. He was on my first and second shows that we did at Sony Hall. And so it would be great to have him on our 18th show at Sony Hall. Well, our 18th show, I guess, would be our 12th at Sony Hall.
Mm.
Well, Larry, man, listen, it's been a great interview here. I appreciate you coming on
No,
and
I really
answering all the
appreciate you guys having
questions.
me on.
Now, I would like to
Yeah.
get you on more regularly.
Mm.
Obviously, when you get this card, put together, we'll get you back on to announce it and let people
September
know.
19th, we're back at Sony Hall. Then November 7th, we are back in Atlantic City. I can tell you in Atlantic City, we're going to feature Justin Figueroa, who's the local
Okay.
hometown hero, is going to be fighting on that card, as well as a few other surprises.
Didn't
And
Justin fight for a cornflake his last time out?
I've promoted Justin's last 4 fights.
Okay, okay. Shout out to Jolene and Adrian.
Jolene and Adrian have been amazing. Justin and I have become quick friends, and if you guys Google and watch the Andy Dominguez fight, Justin is doing the commentary with Randy Gordon and Henry DeLeon.
Mm.
Nice, nice.
We've nicknamed him Mr. Atlantic City, and so
Yeah,
he's
I hear.
becoming
I
quite
hear he's a
popular.
draw down there. I'm waiting to see what Big Box Network is gonna pick him up. He's been in sparring with a couple of big names too, and he
No,
does
he's
some.
got a great management. They're I don't want to steal their announcement because he's fighting in November. Was it August 23rd on a card up in Texas? He's going to be on, and then he's going to be fighting here in November 7th, which would be our fifth time featuring Justin. And like I said, him and I have become quick friends, and he's just been amazing to deal with in Atlantic City.
Mm.
Well, let everybody know where they can find you. And
They can probably find me in the insane asylum if I keep doing boxing, but
whatever, you love it.
I
Hey,
love it. I hate it and I love it all at the same time.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. Larry Goldberg, nice meeting you.
It was nice
My
meeting you
name is
guys. I really appreciate you having me
Oh,
my
on.
you
name is
got good
Edwin.
views on the Dominguez card though.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah,
bad.
no, this was our look. This was our best fight that I think we've ever done because it was a legitimate, like, on BoxRec. It was a legitimate 50-50 fight to the point where, like, why are you guys
Oh, you had
like, it's
Jill
like,
there. Shout out to my
oh,
girl
Jill came
Jill.
out. Jill was there with us for a few days. Jill is great, and the
She
WBC was
is.
great. And like I said, this was a lot. This was a thrilling experience to do one of these regional belts for someone that I've literally watched grow up.
Mm.
Oh, so this is just the main event you put out.
Yeah, I have the whole fight card, but I just I wanted, this was
That's
such a
really
good
good.
fight.
That's really good then. It's good
Yeah,
views
well,
for that.
I have the whole event that we're going to load in the next couple days. I just really wanted everyone to watch this fight because it's proof that an independent promoter with the right, situation can put on, a good fight. Like, this is as good of a fight as, you're going to see. And again, I don't have either one of these guys under contract. I hope both of them make a
Damn.
$1 million, but it was a
Larry, no
real
no
50-50 fight.
sponsors? Those ropes say Boxing Insider
Those
only.
ropes say Boxing Insider. We're doing this on True Grit. We had
Mm.
we have a local baseball card store and a local lawyer who are our sponsors in New York. But this, I mean, in Atlantic City. But this is all done by me surviving on ticket sales and just look. I've done this. I'm doing this. I got to make it work.
Shit, we got it. You got to at least
Nobody's
get
got my
six.
back.
But
I
what?
got
So
to tell
wait,
you
so
that.
wait. I got because listen, I do amateur shows, so this interview is knowledge as well. So what? Do you have like a mandatory minimum that you want for your ropes and ring, and if you don't get it, you just don't sell it?
I don't know. I was never a fan of. I don't want to look like a NASCAR event with 6,000 logos.
Okay.
I wanted to be Boxing Insider. I wanted to build a brand like it was Showbox, like it was one of these smaller events, and I
Yes.
wanted to build a
Yes.
and I wanted to build a club series around it. For me to put, a random sponsor on it, because I mean, how many of these sponsors have come around? They wave money in my face. They promise me the world. You go get this, you get this done, and then the guy flakes on you, or again, we're the little promoter. So if you're a big boxing sponsor, you're not going to sponsor me. You're going to sponsor Top Rank. So, yeah, this lives and dies by my hustle.
Shit. No, listen, the branding looks good. It definitely looks clean. And it's only shows your logo, so I get it. Man,
Like I
you
said,
are
I'd
you are
love to get some
grinding.
sponsors, but it's easier said than done. And one of my old friends told me years ago in boxing, not all money is good money, and some of this
Right.
money that people offer you are attached to bad people, and you just don't want to be involved with them. And we were talking about the people before. I'll tell you this: the criminals in boxing, at least they're honest. It's the good people who pretend like that they're better than you. They're the ones you got to watch out for in
Mm,
boxing. Like, we've dealt with some interesting characters in the last 3 years doing this, and it's very much like I'm very much living like a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Like, I was just the idealistic, boxing media guy, and now we're just looking at just all this just crazy, just I mean, the lies and the this and the that and the dirty business that goes on in boxing. Yeah, it needs to be regulated by the government. I'd like to add about 10 more pages to the Ali Boxing Act if they ask me.
Mm.
mm. Oh
Okay.
man, that's
But
funny.
none of it would have to do with UBOs. So I just learned that term like everybody else did a week ago.
Yeah. We do got a
Right.
question from Treese in Toledo. He says, "What's your thoughts on former champions like Trout and Herring joining bare knuckle boxing?"
So
Wow.
I'm uncomfortable with bare knuckle boxing. I'm going to be completely honest. And it's like I'm not. The last thing I want is to like wake up for Conor McGregor to be like tweeting against me or anything like that. But they did a show in Philadelphia, and one of the trainers was telling us he had guys on it. There was like four broken hands and a broken jaw or something like
Mm,
ridiculous like that. You know, Bare Knuckle is who discovered Heather had injuries from. I don't want to get into her whole situation, but we were scared when Heather Hardy was going to do Bare Knuckle because we knew she was just going to get mangled up and cut up. It's very violent. There's no beauty like in the Sweet Science. It's a one punch brutal.
brutal.
I can't believe that while we're talking about health and safety, that things that are more brutal are going to get approved, but yet this is the world we live in. I
Yeah.
mean, to each his own, but I'm uncomfortable with it because again, I think we need to make these sports safer, and I
Yeah.
think that that's a step in the wrong direction.
No,
Right.
I'm totally with you, man.
It's a meat grinder of a sport.
Yeah, I'm
It's
I'm I'm
it's
good
it's
on the bare
it's
knuckle.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of the UFC in the old days, before, and it's very raw and it's
Mhm.
very, and again, like I said, I was sitting up close watching the Andy fight, and I couldn't like I had to like get up and leave because again I know him well, and it was just he's taking a shot, the other guy's taking a shot. It's like, oh my god, like people get hurt, and when you're dealing with some of these injuries later on. Yeah, no,
Mm.
bare knuckle. These guys are getting real injuries, and like I said, some of it's very cosmetic, with whether it's a million stitches or it's broken jaws and broken hands. It's no bueno.
Mm. Career expendicy and bare knuckles.
But
Jesus.
hey, it's a payday. I get it.
Yeah.
Like you can't tell these guys, you can't tell to a
Right.
boxer who's going to be lucky to get $5,000 or $10,000 as the B side that he shouldn't go to bare knuckle and get $30,000 or $50,000 because
Right.
they're offered real money.
Yeah. At what price?
Exactly, and that's sort of again, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that some of these states are regulating it. I know that that this happened through court cases and stuff of that nature, but yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of bare knuckle, but I understand
Hey,
why
each
these
his own.
fighters are going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
Larry, man, thank you again for coming on. Please give out your social media in case
Yeah.
anybody wants to contact you. And yeah, man,
Well, boxing.
keep doing the good shows out there.
Well, Boxing Insider Promotion, so it's Boxing Insider COM on Instagram. BoxingInsider.com is the old website. You can watch the WBC silver fight on our Boxing Insider's YouTube page, and we'll be back September 19th at Sony Hall, and then back again in Atlantic City at the Tropicana on November 7th.
All right, champ. Thank you
I'm
for
gonna
coming
I'm gonna
on, Larry.
send you I'm gonna send you a request on Instagram. Round One Sports Talk. So if you see one, that'll be me. Round One
All
Sports
right.
Talk.
All
All
right,
right, Larry.
Larry.
All
I
right.
appreciate
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.